Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of my video series on cybersecurity, where we're delving into some of the different concepts and techniques around the cyber kill chain, looking at different ways in which attackers might leverage to attack your organization, as well as ways in which you can prevent against these techniques. We've got a lot to cover in today's session, so I'm going to dive into some of the areas that we're going to talk about today. Well, if you remember from the previous couple of episodes, we looked at, first of all, reconnaissance, which is where attackers can gain some information before they launch an attack on your company. And then also a few ways in which we can deliver a particular payload into the organization. Well, today we're going to be taking a slight step back and we're going to look at how can we build those payloads, weaponization, and then once we've delivered them into the company, how we're going to effectively use them or exploit them, whether that's through a software vulnerability or tricking the user in the case that we're going to be looking at. So before we dive into that, just want to cover off a couple of the concepts, I guess, that we're going to be talking about. There's really two sides to the coin. We've got the defenders over here, so the forces for good, and the evil attackers over here. Well, first of all, as you can imagine, attackers are introducing threats into the environment in the form of attack campaigns, different pieces of malware, things like that. And conversely, the defenders are trying to put controls in place to combat those threats. So that might be particular security technologies and things like that. And depending on what's in place or what's happening, it's going to change the risk factor. So as you might imagine, the more threats that we're seeing within the company, it's going to increase the level of risk that we've got. Whereas the more controls and the better configured those controls are, it's going to reduce the risk. Now, what about vulnerabilities? This is a common problem in the industry today and something that we need to always keep on top on to really get on top of our security posture. Now, in terms of controls and the defender side, really we can protect against vulnerability, so we can put mechanisms in place like firewalls, IPS, endpoint security to stop them from happening in the first place. But also we can roll out patches, so software updates that's going to basically fix that problem and stop it from being exploited. In addition, again, if we're talking about the vulnerability being the human one and tricking the user, maybe we want to roll out some security awareness training to help combat that from happening. And finally, what the attacker really wants to do is exploit a particular vulnerability. So whether that's running a piece of code to take advantage of that thing that we've discovered, or maybe it's just, again, successfully tricking the user. That's really what we're trying to do in the long term. So what I'd like to do is jump into the demo part of the session and really take you through some of the areas in which attacker might want to capitalize on this campaign that we're running. So what we're looking at today, I've got a bit of a attacker machine to prepare a weapon and prepare that payload that we're going to use on the organization. And first of all, I've got a little script here. I'm just going to modify this, and we're going to change the message in here. So let's say, can anybody hear me? We'll come back to what this means later, but I'm just going to save that. And then what I'm going to do is I've got a little PowerShell command prepared here where we're going to convert this script into an actual executable file. So let me just run this. Okay, there we go. We've compiled it. We've created this file called pause.exe. And then finally, if you remember, the way in which we got this into the organization is we wrapped it up into an encrypted or a password protected file. So I'm just going to add, let me grab the file, pause.exe. I'm going to add this to an archive. I'm going to change it to a zip format, and we're going to set a password on there. And let's go and wrap it up. Okay, so now we've got pause.zip that's protected by password. And finally, we're going to attach this to our email that we're sending in to the organization. Again, go and have a look at episode 2. I'll post a link later if you want to see how we put that together. Now, as that's going through, just to give you a bit more of an idea around what's going on here, is we're running a bit of code. So what's actually happening here, we're dropping a bit of a text file on the desktop with a message in. So part of that is, to have a bit of fun, just to let you know that we've installed something, but also we're changing the signature of the code. So if there's any antivirus that's looking for specific, hashes or signatures, we've basically generated a new strain of malware here. And then we've got a bunch of code that's essentially designed to connect back to an attacker's server and get us a foothold on the environment. So with that, let me move over to my other machine that I've got over here, which is this guy here. And you can actually see on this machine, so we're running a virus protection. So we've got a built-in AV that's running on the system. And let's jump into email over here. So we've just received the malicious email. Let's go ahead and download this. And then let's go and essentially unzip the file. So we're going to downloads. Let's go and extract it. I'm just going to add the password that we've said to add. Let me try again. And again, at this point, the user thinks it's the, let me try again. And there we go. So yeah, the user just thinks this is legitimate software, and we've been told to install this. Now, one of the flags that we created when we created this executable was to require admin when we install the file. So this is why we're now allowing access so that we've got administrative control. And this is just going to run something in the background. User thinks, it's a legitimate piece of software or a security update that's being run. And then if we have a look, lo and behold, we dropped that file on the desktop with that message that we put in there. So, okay, interesting. But from the attacker's point of view, what's actually going on? Well, I've got a server here called Caldera. So this is some open software that you can get. And you can see if I go into agents, we've now got this machine that we've got a connection to 30 seconds ago. And also you can see we've got an elevated privilege on this machine, which means we've got full control and we can, start to do some malicious things and run some commands on this machine. As an example, one of the first things that an attacker might want to do is disable the antivirus software that's on there. So we're going to select that machine. I'm going to run a command in PowerShell, and let's search for the antivirus that we've got. And we're going to run that command. And I'm just going to go run. And this is going to go ahead and attempt to disable the antivirus software. So as this is running, let's just give it a sec. What's actually happening? So if I go back to agents, and look at deploying an agent, this is how we created this. So we're using something called Sandcat, which is the default agent for Caldera. And then we want to install an agent on Windows. And then we can basically give it a link to connect back to. And here's where we generated all that code that we put into the executable earlier on. Well, it sounds like, yeah, we've already managed to disable the antivirus protection there. So again, now we can take the attack further, and we can start to do more malicious things in discovery within the environment. So how about Vision 1? Where does trend come into this factor? From an attacker's point of view, what we can actually do is install a sensor alongside the existing antivirus software. So again, it'd be great if we had, the trend software on there, but if you don't, if you're having to use other tools, we can still work alongside of that and integrate by putting a safety net in terms of a sensor. And the alerts are going to take a few minutes to come through, but I'm just going to have a look at one that I created earlier. You can see that using that sensor, we've actually got an incident in the system that's been generated, where we can start to see different things that have happened in terms of suspicious files that are dropped, disabling, malware protection and things like that. And you can see, what are some of the different components that are involved here in terms of the users, the endpoints themselves, the files. If we dig a little bit deeper, we might want to have a look into the particular alert around impairing defenses. And again, we can start to go deeper. We can start to see the particular PowerShell commands and particular files and IP addresses that are relevant within this attack, and start to get a lot of the forensic materials that might be useful here for an investigation. Also, I'm not going into a huge amount of detail, but if we did want to go and isolate this machine, or perhaps go from a user perspective and disable that account, sign them out, that's also a possibility, as well as potentially looking at going into an execution profile, which basically means zooming in the magnifying glass a little bit deeper and taking a look at some of the processes that have happened in this attack. As an example, we open Explorer, then we went to WinRAR, that's created a particular file that's then been extracted into other malicious executable files, that then led to us running these commands and doing all these things. So again, invaluable information if you're looking at investigations during an attack. So hopefully that was useful for everybody. Just one example of a way in which an attacker might get that foothold within your system. And again, stay tuned. Next month, we're going to go deeper into this cyber kill chain and start to look at what other techniques and what other ways is an attacker going to push further now that they've got inside your environment and collecting additional info. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and I'll see you again next month. Bye-bye.